the 360 podcast, an all-around look at student-centered education. I'm Laura Gullen.
And I'm Adrian Pumphrey. And in this episode, the final episode of season 3, we chat with our own head of school, Gareth Vaughan. We talk about how things have been going during the pandemic, as well as what the future might look like with regards to new buildings on campus, as well as the vision for the school. Enjoy the episode. Well, Gareth, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
It's good to see you. So the question that's perhaps on everyone's mind at this point is, will we get to take masks off in August?
I think the answer is that we don't know yet. And we're anxious not to overpromise something that we can't deliver. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we'll continue to take guidance from county, state, and national figures. But I think it's important for people to understand that when the CDC adopts a position, in the fine print somewhere, it will have the caveat with respect to local conditions. Because after all, this is something that is hugely variable in its intensity and case rate and everything, depending on where you live and the environment in which you function. And so a lot of people do quote the CDC to us, but actually what they really need to be worried about is what Marion County Public Health Department is saying.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been a what you might call an unusual year for everybody, and I think one of the things I've found hardest is not being able to see everybody all year, and yourself included, and just we've all been in different buildings, just making sure that we're keeping distant, etc. So partly I would like to ask, how have things been going for you and for the school and during this difficult year? Yeah,
interesting question. I mean, I think that when you look back on where we were just before the start of school, and when you think about the anxiety levels and the fears, understandable fears that people had, given how little information we had about the pandemic and what the true risks were, it's been a remarkable journey. And it's gratifying to believe that we've reached a point now where we've gotten into a routine, but we have a level of comfort with this bizarre situation that we're working with. And so I'm grateful that we did reach that point. But I think it would be a very interesting period to look back on. I mean, one of the challenges, I think, and one of the reasons why I think there was an intensity and fear at the beginning is that traditionally speaking, the sort of medical world's approach to pandemics has been that schools are sites of spread. And in fact, if you go back to even like 1917 and the flu pandemic and other pandemics, standard epidemiological wisdom says close schools. And yet, if you look at it now with what we know now, probably not necessary, certainly not necessary for elementary school, because of the lower risk and in fact that they weren't, transmission hubs. And so I think a lot of thinking about how you manage pandemics, the public health response will be informed by this one, and hopefully when there is another one, because I think there will be another one, we will do it better, all of us. But I am glad that we reached a level of sort of bizarre normality. One of the things I miss, though, not just, I miss obviously not seeing everybody, but I miss not being able to walk around my classroom. Just something as simple as walking around and spending time with each of them, and them being able to walk around, because in science classes you walk around a lot. That really constrained my teaching. being anchored to one place. And I think it made me a much less effective teacher. So
I was just saying to someone the other day that what I'm excited to get back once we can is bringing movement back into the classroom and more small group work and having kids get up and do stuff and not just kind of be chained to those desks all day. What are some of the silver linings you found though as a teacher? I feel like there's definitely some things that I maybe otherwise would not have tried if I didn't have to try it with the pandemic. Did you find any? What are some of your silver linings?
I think not so much silver linings with respect to the teaching. I found that very challenging. I think there was some silver linings or some sort of pluses and minuses that I wasn't necessarily expecting with respect to Zoom. I think there's an interesting paradox around equity and technology in education. On one level, there's this equity issue around who has access to good internet, who has the machinery, how much do we need to step in? And it isn't a simple divide between those with and those without. It's, if you have 3 kids, do you really have that many separate, laptops and everything? And can you reasonably expect it to be having the bandwidth to do it? So there's some real variation there. On the flip side, I really think that there's an opportunity around a positive in the area of equity, which is attendance and access for parents and teachers in parent-teacher conferences. Expecting people to take a day off work to attend, expecting them maybe to have to go through some struggles around childcare and things like that, has tended, I think, to be a disincentive for parents to always attend parent-teacher conferences. And I think we all, know the old saw of, well, we saw a bunch of parents, but they really weren't necessarily the ones we needed to see.
Right.
So I think that one of the potential benefits around technology in Zoom is having a better platform for communicating with more of our parent community more consistently. So I think I wasn't expecting that.
That's great. And in terms of your own teaching, do you think there would be anything that you've got out of this year that you think you may have thought about in a different way?
That is, it is an interesting thing to consider. I guess, when I reflect on my own teaching, I do feel that it's very much about the human interaction in the room in real time. And so when I say that I have struggled, I really have struggled with that. I also think that part of science is working with one's hands and doing things together. And so, for example, when we did some experiments, we went into using computerized simulations. And to be honest, the kids hated it. It was, it took something which is normally the high point of a science class and turned it into something sterile and really unappealing. So, for me, it's just been an affirmation of the importance of the human element in teaching. And when I think about, you go back some years and you think about the advent of MOOCs with massive online open courseware and people pontificating that it was going to be the end of brick and mortar institutions. And then the whole thing has turned out completely differently because hundreds of thousands of people signed up for that kind of access to free MIT coursework, and hundreds of thousands of people dropped out within weeks. And so the numbers that actually completed any of those courseworks was minuscule to what started, and I think that's an important lesson that we cannot lose.
Yeah, I can vouch for that because I've signed up for one of those courses before. I didn't finish it either.
I've lived it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm one of those.
No, and it actually caused me to reflect on something which it goes back to, when I went to the Institute of Education in the University of London to do my PGCE, speaking in English terminology here, postgraduate certificate in education. That's what you get to be certified after you have an undergraduate degree. And before you arrive, they sent you one piece of required reading, which is Ivan Illich's Deschooling Society. So here you have, this South American philosopher priest essentially saying that you don't need traditional schools, you just need the resources and the opportunity to access them. And this is all written pre, the real sort of advent of technology in education, which should have made Illich's, vision even easier to reach. And I just think it's not going to happen.
Right. One of my freshmen who was a virtual learner almost the entire year was on campus for his exam just yesterday. And he came down the hall and he was walking toward me and he was like, "Hi, Miss Gella." He's got his mask on, so it was hard to recognize. But I got so excited just to see him and to just share that space together. And it almost felt like when you come back in the fall and you see students who you haven't seen all summer and you're excited to see them again.
Right.
You just have them in the halls.
I think the other thing that though there has been, some reporting on and writing on those kids who benefited, maybe those that had some social anxieties, some maybe concerns about the interaction in the classroom and the way in which they have been treated or thought they would be treated and have benefited from being online, I feel that that's a very small minority, and that the ones who have been online who have suffered from it, it's been considerable, and I am very sad about that. It's taken an emotional toll.
Thinking about a more positive note at this point, we're sitting in this beautiful new lobby of Ayres Auditorium, and we've got the Wellness Centre being developed, which, as I've looked after, sixth grade recess on a daily basis, has had an element of hope in these difficult times, as we've seen this building come up, and it's been pretty exciting to watch it being built. How's the master plan going? How's the wellness centre going? Can you give us an update on how things are progressing?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I mean, it is phase one of a master plan that goes on beyond that. It is, our next phase will be a new elementary school. As to when we pull the trigger on that is dependent on lots of factors, not the least of which is completing this project first. I think the other thing that's been amazing is that sitting here in the new lobby of the auditorium is that while obviously a lot of fundraising effort has been going into the Wellness Centre, to be perfectly honest, not everybody wants to give to a wellness centre. And so we've had a number of wonderfully generous gifts towards this renovation, which is great because it gives a little bit of a balance where we're paying attention to arts and the performing arts, not just sports and wellness. And also we've had some of our most generous gifts towards scholarship and financial aid. And particularly, I am pleased to tell everyone that we've now got a endowed fund, which has been endowed with $450,000 to pay what is sort of rather, sort of not very attractively called trailing aid, but it's the idea of if you're on financial aid, that we want you to have access to a full Park Tudor experience. And so how can we make sure that if you want to do Model UN, you can go to The Hague, or that if you want to play baseball, that we can help you with the uniform and the glove and or if you want to learn an instrument, that we can help with lessons, or even with renting the clarinet and things like that. So we're very grateful that somebody sort of bought into that vision and gave that amount of money for that purpose. And I think a great job by the development office to bring that in as well.
Absolutely.
So the wellness building, exciting for lots of reasons that go beyond just how exciting the building is. One of the other things which is really exciting is that it ushers in a huge new world around curriculum, because it has a focus on wellness in its more complete and holistic sense. And so you're looking at curriculum revision that goes into health, nutrition, emotional health, and that building becomes a focus for all of those things. And that athletics, important though it is, and we have many kids that play sports, athletics is just one of the clients of that building. And we really want to use it as a focus towards lifelong health and healthy habits and all of those things. So it's exciting on numerous levels.
That's great.
It's also costing a lot of money, and we're also succeeding in raising a lot of money, which is good. So we're at 20.9 million at the moment, and campaign is probably a $28 million campaign. 30 is the kind of reach target.
That's amazing. Yeah.
That's exciting. So then you mentioned that the next phase would be for lower school?
Yeah, if and when that becomes possible, yeah.
Do we know where that might be?
So physically, we want to try and reimagine the campus in a form where it's still very much a campus with space, and it's almost like a small liberal arts college, really. Mm-hmm. But you just don't want the 3 and 4-year-olds to be closest to the road. I mean,
right.
Just from the point of view of safety and access and everything like that. So we would love to get them, all of the elementary school, into a purpose-built building that was new and in a more favorable position. So one where there's great outdoor space, where you can play, and also where it's not as easy to access for security reasons. Yeah.
That's very exciting, a future to look forward to. With that in mind, we have to think about sort of the reason we're here, and teaching and learning and the development of the whole child. And I'm wondering, looking ahead, as you're thinking about building new buildings and exciting new sort of curriculum developments, do you have any sense of vision for the future in terms of teaching and learning, and any directions that we're headed? I know we've talked a lot about the mastery transcript in the past, and where that could possibly lead us.
Yeah, I think that mastery transcript, I have this feeling that it's probably for us going to be on hold for some time. I mean, it will be interesting to see how all of those initiatives come out of the pandemic period, but I don't feel so strongly, or I don't see it getting the kind of traction at the moment that I thought maybe it could or would. What I do see for us, though, is, I think a lot of value in the ongoing relationship with the Center for Transformative Teaching and Learning. I probably got that acronym wrong. But, with the guys at St. Andrews.
Yes.
And I really think also, us making use of Elevate, it's going to be our own proprietary software for documenting our curriculum is going to be important. But important because it's going to provide us, I think, with the foundation to look at our teaching and learning from a more evidence-based and research-based perspective. I think that one of one of the challenges or paradoxes about independent education sometimes is that you may have the image of Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society, who is essentially the antithesis of a research-based approach to pedagogy. But it has this great emotional power, and it can be quite seductive. And I think we can get drawn into that sort of approach and that kind of perspective on our teaching. But in fact, teaching is, it's a very important profession, and it has a certain body of professional knowledge and research behind it, and that's increasing. And if we make use of that, we're going to be better at our craft. And so I think partly what we have to do is really encourage people to embrace that, and encourage our colleagues to embrace, the research and that which can be gleaned from it and made use of, and maybe say goodbye to some of the sort of traditional views of the craft, which were really more as art and a personal sort of endeavor that was unique to you. I recommend that everybody, I don't read it, I would say don't read The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. Watch Maggie Smith win an Oscar acting it. It's a little hard to get, but it's great. It shows you the potential negative of the hugely personal, hugely individual approach to teaching.
Mm-hmm. And that brings us back to the benefit of in-person teaching, right? Because it is so nuanced absolutely. And human.
Yes. It's that interesting melding of the human and the nuanced, but informed by the scientific and the research. Mm-hmm. When you think about just how much more we know about the brain than we did because of the advent of MRIs and CT scans and things like this, there's stuff about language that, because you had examples in which people had brain injuries and they lost the power of speech. There was this sort of mistaken idea that somehow language was physically located in one particular part of the brain. The mechanical production of it through your mouth might have been, but where the words were is completely different. And depending on which language you speak, your words are stored in different parts of your brain. It's really interesting because it has a great deal of relevance for how you teach a foreign language and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So summer is rapidly approaching.
Yes.
Do you have any fun plans yourself this summer to get some rest?
Yeah, I'm in the process of building. Well, somebody is building for me a log cabin in the woods in Michigan.
Amazing.
So I have 10 acres of woods, and it's a short walking distance to my sister-in-law, that is my late wife's next oldest sister and her husband. And so we're sort of working on a sort of family compound out in the woods. So that will be exciting.
That sounds great.
Yeah. At the moment, the logs are up and the roof is about to go on. Yeah.
Very exciting.
Sounds like you're ready to be Thoreau for a little bit.
Yes.
Have some time alone in the woods.
Yes, very much so. But, of course, you have to have access to essentials. So it's a 10-minute walk to the public beach on Lake Michigan, and it's a 5-minute walk to the nearest pub. So.
Perfect. What more do you need?
Priorities here. Priorities.
Excellent.
And a good book. What are you reading right now?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that. It's terrible because I have this, as you know, I have this tendency to sort of dial down into the less creditable layers of reading because it's like relaxation. So I'm currently rereading some spy novel series. I did just get from Amazon in hard copy, in solid book form, John Green's latest, which is the collection of essays on the current epoch, geological epoch that we're in. So Amprocene, I think it's Tales of the Amprocene Age or something like that. So I'm interested in reading that. And beyond that, I'm not sure.
Which spy novels are you reading? Just out of interest.
Oh, it's a series about an assassin called The Grey Man.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Mark Geary is the author.
All right. Sounds like good vacation reading.
There is one though, which I have to say, which I should pass on because I think probably our freshmen would enjoy it. But it is. It started off as a short story written by a woman, Martha Wells, science fiction, and it's called The Murder Bot Diaries. And it imagines a future in which there are various machines that are helping us in our technological world that have developed a level of consciousness and independence and personality, which they're not supposed to do, but these have. And this is about, it follows the sort of life and exploits of this one bot that is supposed to be really just a lowly engineer on a interstellar flight, but actually becomes the major protagonist in a series of stories. And what's interesting about it is that it has a personality and a sense of personal ethic that is really interesting, and the way it comes into conflict with the humans that it is supposed to be helping.
It's always my favorite part of science fiction books is that, well, what does it mean to be human? And
Yes.
we can answer it much easier when we see something that's not supposed to be human, but then takes on those human qualities.
I mean, one of the challenges this year, actually talking about literature, one of the challenges this year has been, as part of the sort of cultural and diversity, equity, and inclusion sort of challenges that have come along, has been, responding to people who wish for us to stick in a certain lane, maybe educationally, that think about if we teach the classics, if we stay with factual investigation, that somehow we will be on narrower but safer and better territory. And I was thinking about that recently, and I was thinking, what if we turned to just a sort of, in literature, to a Shakespeare-only diet? What if we did that? And then I was thinking, well, can you teach Othello without talking about race? Can you teach The Taming of the Shrew without talking about gender roles? Can you teach Twelfth Night without contemplating gender fluidity? And can you teach The Merchant of Venice without contemplating religious bigotry and anti-Semitism? And the answer, of course, is that you can't, because literature is about the human condition. So I think, there are definitely challenges ahead for us in all of those areas related to that. And we have to be prepared for that. And I think it's important for us to remind ourselves of the reasons why we teach and what we are trying to achieve. And that as long as we stay true to the vision of responsibility and compassion and intellectual curiosity and all of those things, that we will eventually come out on the other side of this period of time and have the knowledge that we've done the right thing. And the other thing I think is important for us to remind everybody of is that we've believed in equity for a very long time, and we have talked about it, and it has been not purely about race. In fact, when you think about the way we talk about our academic program, we talk all the time about meeting the child where they are and helping them to then achieve the maximum that they can. And that is fundamentally an issue of equity, of meeting them where they are, not where you hoped they'd be or where the majority of the class is. And we've got important issues in sort of gender equity when it comes to sports and athletic facilities that I hope the building will go some way to address. And so, I'm sad that we've had some very difficult conversations in which maybe it's been about the words and their meaning rather than about the substance of what we're trying to do. But there we are. We soldier on.
Are we ready for rapid fire?
Are you ready for rapid
Is this a
fire? We have a
rapid
rapid
fire
fire round.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Okay.
So,
You're not allowed to think too much.
Okay.
That's the rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pen or pencil?
Pen.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
That's the right answer. Mac or PC?
Mac.
Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Really? Okay, I was really not sure. I'm like,
Ugh.
part of me feels like he's a dog guy.
No.
But you
like
also feel very
I have
introspective.
neither.
So
I have
introspective,
neither
so-
at the moment. I have neither at the moment because they tie you down too much. But when my wife was alive, the family pets were cats, and we always had two. And actually, when she passed away, one of the challenges was that they were used to having one lap each. And so I went through this period where they used to fight to get on my lap. So,
Take turns.
yes, share.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction.
Netflix or Amazon Prime?
Ooh. At the moment, I would say tending to Amazon Prime.
What are you watching?
Well, I'm watching a bunch of stuff across so many outlets, and some of them I don't even know where they are. But I have just devoured the first episode of the 6th series of the British crime series, The Line of Duty, which is, I recommend to anybody and everybody. It's written by playwright Jed Mercurio, and it contains long periods of interrogation rather than action and activity, but it is absolutely gripping. And the final episode of this, the 6th season, is the most watched TV program in British history.
Oh, well.
And that's on Prime? Or you're not sure?
It's on AMC. It's on
something.
Brit-
It's on
It's
the
on
It's on
Just keep clicking.
BritBox. It's on BritBox.
It's on the internet
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah.
I think I'm watching it on BritBox.
Okay.
Okay, we got just a few more for you. So, while walking, music or podcast?
Music.
Cake or pie?
Pie.
Big party or small gathering?
Oh, small gathering. I'm an introvert.
And then you got the last two.
Oh, yeah. So, cricket or soccer?
You're asking me right at the end of the premiere.
You have to pick one.
Cricket.
That was correct. That was the correct answer. And then Arsenal versus Tottenham Hotspur.
Oh, drop dead. That is like asking somebody, I don't know. That's like asking a vegan steak or tofu.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that was
Tottenham Hotspur,
that was my
of
fault.
course.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
So
There we
you
go.
have to fill people in because when he wrote that down, and I said, maybe this is a silly question for,
Yeah, no,
for
I
the
had
two
to-
of you.
I had
but
to
for,
translate to
For a
Laura.
born and raised
Yeah.
American, I'm like, Arsenal versus Spurs. What
Okay,
is that?
so-
There's a large
So two-
Spurs following in
Talk
Italy.
to us about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
two Premier League soccer teams from North London that are within, like walking distance
Yeah.
of one another.
Oh.
Okay, so they're right next to one another, and both with sort of almost a century of history. But with Arsenal having moved from south of the river to north of the river, I don't know, 80 years ago, whatever, and so sort of invading the other territory. And so bitter rivalry. And for some years, Arsenal has been in the ascendancy, and their fans have this tradition, which they refer to as St. Totteringham's Day. And that is the day that they, as a team, finish far enough ahead in the league than Tottenham, that Tottenham can never catch them. That's the day that they... Well, let's just say it hasn't happened for the last 5 years. And it didn't happen this year.
It's kept it entertaining though. Yeah,
Yes.
good. Well, Gareth, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, and congratulations on the podcasts and everything that you've been doing with that, because it's been, great quality and really interesting, and I hope it's something that we can continue and expand.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That was Gareth Vaughan, head of school at our own Park Tudor School.
Thank you so much for joining us for our third season of the 360 podcast. We are excited to see you next season in August 2021. Have a good summer.
Have a good summer. Bye.